Welcome to GNN. I am your anchor, Red Nebula, and here's what's happening in your part of the system. The hunt for Grotmar continues as the new gold rush begins. Millions of prospecting bounty hunters have struck out in search of the former Chancellor and many other renegades, with huge sums over their heads. Roxnarian officials believe that this sudden boost in the space economy will put our system out of the recent space depression. With this week's death count, Ace has the news. Take it away, Ace.
To kick off this week's sports is our official GNN death count. First off, we have Rando, a trader wanted for counterfeit slagmite crystals brought in by hunter Elvis Fudd for a bounty of 100,000 woolongs. Heard he got caught in the wrong asteroid belt at the wrong time. Next, we have the ghost of Herbert Venetian, wanted for terrorizing GNN crew members, brought in by none other than his original killer, Electro Infernato, for a whopping 300 woolongs. I guess it doesn't pay to kill what's already dead. And this week's top wanted poster features Grotmar, former Chancellor of planet Big Round Circle, with a bounty of 50 million woolongs, on the condition that he be brought in alive, and 600,000 woolongs if brought in dead. Watch out there, Grotmar. And for all those out there hunting, we wish you luck.
It feels great to finally get Herbie out of here. Thanks, Ace. How's the weather look this yesterweek, Dave?
Yesterday's Weather War report is brought to you by Sticky Squid Biscuits. They are so yummy that it's very easy to ignore the brutal backdoor aftermath. Get some for your mom. Sticky Squid Biscuits are best consumed after a 12 moon fasting period and may contain nuclear residue, hover car battery runoff, and/or rusty shrapnel. Last month's relatively calm weather war is expected to take a bad angle in this Morrow week, with the heightened tension that has fluctuated since Grotmar put that weak-ass hit on Glufbar. Forecasted icequakes are set to pulverize over 11/7ths of the known pseudoverse, and an escaped turkey shot down a Russian plane. Expect the customary 40 Morrow days and 40 yesternights of violent excrement storms in the Detroit sewage sector. Here's a delightful yester image dropped by friends of show observer Lucinda Gallix, who was lucky enough to witness this happy lizard seconds before it joyously decapitated her, in the good way. Back to you, Red.
Thanks, Steve. That's one heck of a nice picture. To conclude this week's broadcast, I bring a special message for bounty hunters from Roxnar Glufbar. Dear hunters, the first one to bring me Grotmar alive and well will be now awarded 10 hextrillion woolongs. That's hextrillion with an H. Thank you and good night. Wow, that sounds like anyone who catches Grotmar will surely send us further back into the Great Space Depression. Fantastic. Thanks for tuning in to GNN. Have a wonderful forever. It feels great to
An escaped turkey shot down a Russian plane. No.
You did so good.
Hey everybody, I'm Chef Todd, and welcome to Under the Apple Tree, where I grow, build, and of course cook my way towards a handmade life. Today we're going to talk about lasagna, one of my favorite handmade comfort foods. Just a lot of fun with this. Everyone has that grandmother or knows the stories of the Italian grandmother that throws together this lovingly created casserole that just warms you from the inside out. So sit back and I hope you enjoy it. So here we are, back at the cutting board. We need to cut up our celery, our carrots, our onions, our garlic, and our basil to get them ready to make up the sauce. Like I said, I like to do this handmade, so I have a wonderful jar of homemade tomato sauce from earlier this season. When I can my tomato sauce, all I do is reduce it down, try to get the juice in the tomatoes, and I don't add anything to it. So it's completely naked. I could use it for chili, for tomato sauces like this. I could use it for Bloody Mary mixes, all those kind of things. Kind of just leaves it open to all kinds of possibilities. So first we need to do is season this up a little bit, and the direction we're going to go is our classic mirepoix of onion, celery, and carrots, a little bit of basil, and a little bit of garlic. And let's get chopping that stuff up. So we're going to chop this fairly small. I don't want to cook the sauce out too long, so we're going to go small on our cuts. Remember to protect those fingers and let the knife do the work. Celery is real easy. You're just going to slide down that, chopping it about 1/4 inch thick. The carrots we're using are organic, so I didn't peel them. I just used like a potato scrubber, cleaned off the dirt a little bit, and they're ready to be chopped up. Of course, you want to take off the tops and not use those. Everything else, though, is usable now. And then a few pieces of garlic. And as we've seen before, we're just going to smash those a little bit, and then follow up by chopping them up. And then we have our basil. As you can see, we just have some leaves here. And the classic way of cutting these is to roll them up like this. This is called chiffonading basil, and it helps cut it without bruising it so it doesn't brown, and you keep all the good flavor and oils locked in there. And again, you just want to let your knife do the work. Slide through. At this point, this is a chiffonade, and these are really nice. You can unroll those, toss them around a little bit, and it makes a really nice garnish in the kitchen. We're going to take it a step further, though. Turn them this way and just chop it up the rest of the way. So last thing would be our mushrooms. We're going to just chop those fairly big. We want them to stay. This is going to cook in the sauce for a few minutes, and then in the oven for about 40. So you want to make sure they maintain some of that body. So we're only going to get maybe about 4 or 5 slices out of each one, nice and thick. I'll get the rest of this stuff cut up, and I'll meet you over by the stove. So here we are back at the stove. We're getting ready to prepare our sausage and sauce to put in our lasagna before we layer that all together. So I've got a good sized kettle here going. We're going to put a little bit of olive oil in there. And today we're using a pre-seasoned ground pork. It's mild, so it has some fennel in there, a little bit of red pepper flakes. Otherwise, we'd add those things to our sauce at this point, but this should add plenty of flavor. And we're just going to try to pop that, small chunks and drop it in that way. So I break these up nice and small so I can control the size of them and the cooking. And then when we stir, we just want to make sure that we don't break them down smaller yet. Get the rest in there. I'm going to wash my hands before I stir it. Some of the fat from our pork has rendered out and is kind of adding to that flavor and building that flavor of our sauce. So now we're going to add our veggies in there. Remember, we have our onion, celery, carrots, and garlic all in this mixture here. And again, we're just going to stir that around, give us a few minutes for everything to soften up. And then we'll deglaze with wine and our tomato sauce and just kind of finish it up, and there'll be time to build our lasagna. So Ross and I used to have this French chef in town who ran a great Italian restaurant, Mario. And I asked him one day, I was commending his soup. It was so good, this great seafood chowder. And he said, let me tell you a secret about my sauces and my soups. It is this much stock and this much wine. So of course we want a nice red wine to put in our tomato sauce today. So we're just going to pop that open real quick. So the reason why we have our wine is we want to be able to deglaze this pan. And again, we talked about that in the past. That's just getting all these bits of sausage and veggies off the bottom of it and make sure they're in our sauce. Generally I like to use one that's been left over from maybe the night before or whatever, but there's no leftovers around right now. Gonna stir again a little bit. And we have our homemade tomato sauce. So we have our basil here that we shifted out and cut up. That's gonna go in there. And our mushrooms. So here we are, final step. We just need to build this thing up and throw it in the oven. So it's all downhill from here. We're gonna just do layers of sauce, noodles, cheese, and spinach, and that'll make it up. So let's hit it. For that first layer, you just want a little liquid mostly in the bottom of that pan. That's just to make sure that our noodles don't stick to the bottom. For noodles, we have the straight to lasagna. So we have a ricotta cheese here. We're just kind of spreading that around. As we smush this whole thing together, this is going to get spread even better, so you don't need to be too meticulous about it. With a pan this thick, I'm usually get maybe 3 or 4 layers. Try to get your noodles to cover as much as you can and put a little bit of pressure on them. So we have that there. I'm going to put a little bit of spinach on top of that. And then a good amount of mozzarella or blended Italian cheeses. And there we go. We're going to take some aluminum foil, oil that, put that over the top, bake this at 400 degrees for about 25 minutes, take the cover off, and give it another 10-12 minutes till it's hot in the center. So let's just get that in the oven then. Oh, right on. She's all ready for the dance. Our lasagna had about 45 minutes or so in the oven, and we can't end up with just this piece of art here. Look at this. Nice caramelization on the cheese. It's been sitting for a little over 10 minutes now, which is integral to a successful lasagna. You want to make sure that you give it time to rest so those liquids are reabsorbed by the noodles and it kind of stays apart. If you just cut into it right away, you're going to end up with that soupy mess. We've let it sit long enough where it still is going to be a little messy, but we should be able to get a full piece out. Make sure your knife is nice and sharp and just a little jagged movements to get through that cheese. Oh my gosh, can you guys smell that yet? And go here, just have a little spinach on the plate for a bed. And the moment of truth. This is always a scary part of lasagna. Look at that. That is gorgeous. Definitely one of my specialties, one of my favorite things to make. You can get one yourself at lunch at the Apple Tree Cafe and Catering, newly opened. Check us out at appletreecafecatering.com. Remember to follow us on Twitter at AppleTreeShow. Subscribe and comment down below. And we'll see you next time under the apple tree.
Hey, I'm Brandon Palmer, and you're watching episode number 8 of Pigskin Pundits. Today we have Jacob number 1 giving you all the latest in NFL news, and Jacob number 2 will be walking us through zone and man-to-man defense. All that is coming up. Do not go away.
This is Jake Dodson bringing you the NFL news. Breaking news. The Browns have announced that starting quarterback Johnny Manziel will start the rest of the season. Giants wide receiver Victor Cruz is officially done for this season after having season-ending surgery on his calf. The Giants have signed free agent wide receiver Hakeem Nicks to fill in his role. Huge blow to the Patriots after star wide receiver Julian Edelman broke a bone in his foot and is officially out 6 to 8 weeks. The Cowboys look to end their 7-game losing streak after getting back star quarterback Tony Romo from a broken collarbone. Peyton Manning has officially eclipsed Brett Favre for career passing yards. Unfortunately for Manning, he threw 4 picks in the game, was benched, and is out for Sunday's matchup due to a foot injury. The Philadelphia Eagles starting quarterback Sam Bradford is officially out at least 2 weeks due to a separated shoulder and a concussion. The NFL has confirmed that the false start penalty at the end of the Jaguars-Ravens game was missed, and if that false start penalty was called, there would have been a 10-second runoff giving the Ravens the victory and not the Jaguars' late field goal to win it. And now there can only be 2. There is only 2 undefeated teams left, including the Patriots and the Panthers. And that is all for the NFL news this week.
All right, Brandon.
What?
Since you're so determined to be my football protege or whatever, I'm gonna throw something a little more complicated your way.
Oh, well, what's up for this week, Sensei?
What do you know about man versus zone defenses?
I've heard of it, but I have no idea what it's about.
All
I
right,
suppose you're going to enlighten me, huh?
let me explain.
Okay.
We'll look at the basic defensive formation here. The cover 2.
Cover 2?
Yeah, every team uses it in some form or another. It basically just means you have 2 safeties over the top.
2 safeties over the top. Got it.
In a zone defense, all of your defensive players that are covering against the pass, drop back into specific zones. The basic version will put the safeties in really deep zones. The cornerbacks will go out to the flat routes, and the linebackers will drop back kind of in the middle. Defenders will move with receivers as they go through their zone and then hand them off to the next as they run out of that zone.
It sounds really complicated for them to run.
It can be, and communication between the defenders is incredibly important. You have to know when to hand a receiver off to the next guy, and the next guy has to know when the receiver is coming into his zone. And the safeties have to always, always, always stay on top of the receivers. You should never, ever see a receiver further downfield than a safety. Basically, everybody needs absolute top-notch situational awareness.
If it's so complicated, why do defenses use it?
For one, it allows the defenders to keep their eyes on the quarterback more than in man coverage. This makes it easier for the defenders to make a play on the ball, or interception, or a knockdown pass, or whatever.
And what about man-to-man coverage? How is that different from zone coverage?
Man defense is a lot simpler. With their basic cover 2 man, you still have the 2 safeties in the deep zone coverage, but all the defenders underneath that are matched up with a specific receiver on the offense. So your cornerbacks are matched up on the wide receivers, and your linebackers will be matched up with tight ends or running backs. They basically, like after the snap, they just try to cover that player as long as they can, hopefully to the end of the play.
That seems a lot simpler to run.
It is, but it relies a lot more on the physical talents of the defender. Linebackers typically aren't fast and agile enough to cover that well, and there's a lot of different play designs that can knock a corner off of man coverage.
Wow, it seems a lot more complicated than I imagined. Defense is a lot more than just, hey, go cover that guy, or hey, make sure you cover that zone. It takes a lot of awareness to run this.
It is, and this is just the tip of the iceberg for defensive planning. And as complicated as the defense is, offense is even more complicated than that.
Oh? Sneak preview next week?
Could be.
Could be. Hey, thanks for watching episode number 8 of Pigskin Pundits. If you have any questions or opinions, you can send them to the TC Weekly Facebook. Whoa! Hey, I caught it!
You didn't make a football move. That's not a catch.
Man, what are you talking? What did you say? Anyway, next week, Jacob number 2 will be talking about defensive alignments. Tune in next week.
As star quarterback Tony Romo is making his debut. His debut.
Did you catch that?
It didn't show on it at all.
Are you gonna hear it? I don't know how I did hit that the first time.
Could be.
Here at Student Survival Guide, we sometimes offer guides to students to help them survive the hazards of college life. This episode has some tips for you to keep in mind as we get closer to finals week.
Tip number 1, don't freak out. Letting the stress of finals week get to you can affect your ability to take the tests. Worrying can keep you from focusing, keep you from sleeping, and have you second-guessing answers.
Don't be too relaxed. Make sure you take finals week seriously. Be prepared, know your grade before going in, and make sure to ask any questions on things you're confused about before the test.
Tip 3. Get some sleep. Staying up all night to cram might seem like a good idea, but trying to take a test while tired can impair your decision-making abilities and cause you to have trouble thinking clearly.
Tip number 4. Study at your own pace. Don't overload. Knowing when you need to take a break is the most effective method of studying. When you push your limits, you're more likely to be distracted or not to retain information.
I hope these tips have calmed your nerves. Remember to have a plan in place to focus studying on areas you feel weak in. Don't forget to ask for help and keep your chin up. The end of the semester is coming soon.
Study. Finals. The lifestyles of ancient Egyptians were often marked with hover cars.
Welcome to another episode of MTE. What we're going to take a look at today is actually a very serious and controversial topic. Right now today, we're going to be talking about copyright laws and how it applies to people's digital media today, whether it be SoundCloud, YouTube, creating different audio and video elements. The point is, how can you use others' materials while giving them the proper credit and not infringing upon their created works of art, and vice versa? Well, today we're going to take a look at that and cover the basics. In order to not illegally use somebody else's materials, you need to be aware that there are 4 major factors that we are going to cover right here, right now. That first factor is the purpose and character of your use and how you're going to use the material in your selected work. The primary indication of the fair use and the character of your use is determined by 2 questions. The first question being, has the original material been transformed by adding a new expression or meaning? And the other question being, was value added to the original by creating new info, aesthetics, insights, or understanding? Well, let's take a look at an example. Everybody's very familiar with the Scary Movie franchise, and people always wonder, how can they create these parodies using these very distinct characters? Well, let's take a look at that and I'll explain that. Let's take a look at Scary Movie 1. Scary Movie 1 is a spoof and a parody of the original Scream movie, which had the slasher, the psycho dude in the white scary mask running over, that whole thing. The important part is Scary Movie, they took that character and they made it their own. They made a number of changes, so it is not anything intended to be the original, so it's its own custom creation at this point. The second factor involved in all of this is the nature of the copywritten work itself. Now, this mainly deals with how the content is actually going to be used within the audio or video element. When creating actual factual work, the law tends to be more in your favor for using the copywritten material than if, say, you were going to make up a brand new story for it. Word to the wise, if you're going to use copywritten material, you're better off making it a documentary or something realistic and something factually based than something totally fictitious. The third factor in all of this is the amount and the sustainability of the portion taken from the copywritten piece. I mean, obviously, it doesn't really need to be said. This mainly deals with the amount that you're taking and what portions you're taking. And also common sense, the more that you're taking from the copywritten material, the less it's going to be considered fair use. So if you're going to use small snippets, you have a better chance of having that approved as fair use than if you were taking, let's say, 40 minutes out of an hour and a half long movie and just putting all of that in there shot for shot. Now, additionally, if you take the main part, or what's considered the beef or the meat of the main portion of whatever the copywritten material is, that's also an issue. For example, you only have to look back to the one-hit wonder Vanilla Ice and his song Ice Ice Baby.
Anything less than the best is a felony. Love it or leave it. You better gain weight. You better hit bullseye. The kid don't play.
That song was originally derived from a Queen song. The only difference between the Vanilla Ice song and the Queen song was that the Vanilla Ice song had an extra cymbal crash. So that's a perfect example of somebody stealing the meat, the beef, majority of that Queen song's beat and copying it exactly over. The fourth and final factor is the effect of the use of the copywritten material upon the potential market that your content is going to be released in. So this last factor mainly talks about the importance of what kind of market you're going to be releasing the content using the copywritten material in. Now let's take a look at this. For example, if you're going to go ahead and take the new Star Wars plot and try and make your own knockoff Star Wars and appeal to the same potential market as the new Star Wars movie, yeah, that's illegal. You can't do that. That is not permitted by fair use. However, an important distinction is the use of parody in those parody laws. The parody laws state that you can totally destroy the potential market that your competitor is going to be in with his copywritten material that yours originally derives from, but as long as it's changed enough under parody laws, totally 100% fine. So there you have it, 4 main factors for copywritten and fair material use. Is it complicated? Yeah, I'm still confused as I attempt to learn these laws, and let me tell you a secret, probably not going to learn the laws. However, I'm going to do my best to abide by them, and you should too. For more information, head over to creativecommons.org. That is certainly a great site to tell you how to use copywritten material, how to use material with Creative Commons attributes, and everything else. Hopefully this was at least a little bit helpful in helping you determine what you can use and what you can't use for your next audio and video projects. For MTE, I'm Kevin Kleifkin. Thanks for watching.